On October 25th, so the day before yesterday for me, Fit for an Autopsy, which is a deathcore band from New Jersey, USA, released a video for the new single called Red Horizon, which is the third or fourth single from the new album called The Nothing That Is. And this single and this video, the lyrics too, but the video even more, is quite notable because brings something that metal usually avoids, which is reality, right? Fit for an Autopsy, unlike many other bands of extreme metal, which say that, oh, we touch the darkest aspects of human condition, and actually talk about nothing. It's talk about war, but in a very generic way, which is not a specific war, just blood and death, except that they talk a lot about World War II, with a lot of fetishism and weird symbols, like certain Nazi bands from Sweden. Or we talk about violence, but it's always misogynistic violence, which is particularly common in death metal. And terrible religious persecution, and then Satan and pentagrams, and well, Fit for an Autopsy does differently. Fit for an Autopsy talks about real things. This band has appeared in 2008. I listened to them for the first time in 2014, I think, when I was listening to deathcore a lot, and I realized that I really don't like deathcore a lot. I think it's really black metal. And now they're reaching their 7th album. I haven't really followed the band since then. They play something which was deathcore and is more and more a mixture of deathcore with prog metal and post metal. I think it's much better. And this is not the first time they're being very political in a not very subtle way. They have a song called Black Mammoth, which is about oil, petrol, about oil extraction and the disaster that oil extraction brings to the regions where it's extracted, especially for the indigenous peoples. And it's a video that has been made especially because in the US was happening the struggle of Standing Rock, which is a region in North South Dakota, where the Sioux Nation of Standing Rock were fighting against oil extraction, basically, and the government sent an enormous amount of cops to beat the indigenous peoples, and the activists rejoined them. So the video was to help those activists and to gather money, and it's very little, not subtle at all. The song I was talking about, which we're talking about today, is called Red Horizon from the album The Nothing That Is. The video clip, it's basically shows two scenes, two counterposed scenes, which are together in many moments, divided by a mirror. And inside there's a mirror. There are two girl rooms. Okay, so on one side is a very white and clean room with a girl which has dolls and food. Her family comes to her, talk to her. And on the other side you have a room which is very dirty and red and destroyed, with a much younger girl which is completely alone, which has barely any room, no proper toys, no food, and the room is shaken at some points by bombardments. And the girl hides behind the bed. Well, there's a moment when the one girl sees the other behind the mirror, and the other girl beats on the mirror in desperation to try to get away. And one soldier grabs her, and her family, the family of the other girl, which is just watching, comes to help her. It's very heavy. And it's not just heavy. Like I was saying, it speaks about something which is indeed happening. The song is very obvious in being about the conflict, well, not the conflict, the genocide, which is being carried out against the Palestinian people by the state of Israel in Gaza, particularly, but not only there. This is obvious for because of three parts of the lyrics. One is when they say, "Curse your name, beast of Zion." Zion is the name of a mount in Jerusalem, in the tradition of Palestine, and it's the name that has been adopted by a series of organizations, an ideology, which a lot of subdivisions, which appears in middle to late 19th century in Europe, called Zionism, which is an ideology which, like I said, is very diversified, but which is altogether defends that the only solution for anti-Semitism, which it was and is a real problem, is that the Jewish people need to have their own state where they would live alone by themselves, and they have to trample over whomever they need to do that. Zionism is a colonial ideology in all of its branches, be the far-right fascist versions, the more so-called labor left versions, and Zionism with time, well before the Second War, but after World War II it gives more legitimacy. It leads to the founding of the State of Israel, which is Zionist from its laws, which are very racist. It's a state that appears with the ethnic cleansing and the expulsion of the Palestinian people was there. And well, after that the song has a verse which is repeated a few times, which is "The body is burned so bright and God closes his eyes," because like the hottest it is, the more the more bright it is, right? Which is a reference, very clear reference to something I'm not going to close here or indicate here, to a series of bombardments that Israel made to refugee camps of Palestinian people, which burned alive Palestinian people. There are very heavy scenes. It makes no sense for me to show them here, but you can find them. And well, beyond that, after the lyrics, which are being published by the band themselves, the commentaries are over, but the song's still there on the outro. Joe Badolato, I think I pronounce his name properly, he's the current singer of the band, he screams the last sentence, and that sentence is the most polemic one. It's what he says is "from the river to the sea." It's the first half of a slogan, which is one of the main slogans of Palestinian liberation: "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." The river is the River Jordan to the east, and the sea is the Mediterranean Sea to the west. They're the classic frontiers, the classic borders of the Palestinian territory. And this is a phrase which a lot of people try to paint as if it was anti-Semitic. And well, no, it's not. See, the Palestinian territory already exists with that name for millennia, since before the Roman Empire. And for around 1,000 years it was part of the Ottoman Empire, then it was a mandate of the British Empire, and then it was occupied by Israel. It's not anti-Semitic to be anti-Zionist. It is an effort that Israel and its allies, Trump, Bolsonaro, most of the far right in general, but not just the far right, even classic right, and unfortunately even a large part of the left. In Brazil it's the PT and the PSOL, Jacques Wagner, Marcelo Freixo, Jean Willis. There's an effort that's done by the allies of Israel to confuse anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, as if anyone who is against the state of Israel and the genocide that Israel commits ever since its foundation, in larger or smaller intensity. Well, this has not began now, it began in 1948. There's an effort to confuse anti-Zionists as if they were people who were against the Jewish people. This is a lie. A lot of the Jewish people in the world are against Israel, are against the ethnic cleansing and genocide Israel commits against the Palestinians. It's not anti-Semitic to consider that Israel must not exist. It's not anti-Semitic to fight against the existence of Israel. What the Palestinians fight for is not to expel the Jewish people. We must remember that before Israel existed, there were Jewish people there with the Palestinians for a long time, and peacefully. Of course, there were issues, there have been issues, but it was not like in Europe, where the systematic pogroms which led to tens of thousands of deaths. What the Palestinians demand is not the expelling of the Jews, it's the destruction of the Israeli state, which is a racist state, the return of all Palestinian refugees, and the building of a single Palestinian state which is laic, non-racist, democratic, for the Palestinian people to live with anyone who wants to live in peace with them. That's it. That's what from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free means. That is what they demand. That's what's in this song. It's a lie to say that the current war began as an answer to what Hamas did in October 7. This is a lie. This genocide began at least in 1948, actually before, since they were Jewish militias. They were the Lehi, the Irgun, the Haganah committing atrocities against the Palestinians. This did not begin in October 7 to 2023. What happened in 7 October 2023? Hamas organized an attack, which for me was a resistance attack, which yes, killed a lot of Israeli people, many of them civilians, 1,000 civilians. And in answer, in response, at least 40,000 Palestinian people have been murdered. Around 15 to 16 Palestinian children have been murdered. And the answers are ridiculous, because like, oh, Hamas hid below a hospital. And well, Putin says the same of Ukraine. So you, who are defenders of Israel, do you think Putin is right? And this brings us to the second part of the video, because this song, Red Horizon, talks not only about what's happening, the genocide about against the Palestinians. This is one side, but there's another side of it. See, the two actors made a video, or two kids. One is an American girl called Bianca Jasmine Lee. I couldn't find much about her. She's a model. She lives, I think, in the East Coast, and she's 14 years old. The other girl is called Nakba. She's 8 years old, and she's a Ukrainian refugee who now lives in the US. She fled from the war. She fled from the war that began when the Russia led by the dictator Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine in 2022. This is a much more complex conflict. I'm not going to start debating it here. It's not. It would be a lot of work, maybe in another video. But there's a large part of the left which somehow whitewashes Russia and thinks either everyone is wrong or that it must invade because Ukraine Nazi or whatever. Fact is, it's a large war which killed a lot of people and which led to a large amount of people to run. Ilana Nashkova is one of them. She's one of those hundreds of thousands of people, kids included, which had to leave the country. This is not just in Ukraine, obviously, and not only in Palestine either. There are other genocides happening right now. The Rohingya in Myanmar are still being genocided. There are still genocides in Sudan and Congo, many other places. There is also a process which is not quite a genocide, but of ethnic cleansing against the Uyghur people on the part of the Republic of China. There's also genocide in Brazil against the indigenous people because the temporal frame, it's a law that's recently approved, which it's basically genocide. What Fit for Autopsy did in this song is to place this discomfort, which should be more daily for us, in our face. Nobody really manages to deal with this sort of madness all the time. Music helps us dealing with it to distract us, but we can't flee from reality all the time. We can't just keep an aesthetic rebellion of letting our hair grow and drink a lot. No. To rebel is to fight against real injustice and all oppression and injustice that capitalism brings. To be a rebel is to be on the side of the Ukrainian people against the Russian invasion, and on the side of the Palestinian people for the destruction of the state of Israel, for the creation of a Palestinian state, for the liberation of all Palestine, from the river to the sea.